All right, y'all. Well, we are back on Rooted and Radiant. I am your host, Ashley, and I'm so excited that you are here. We are wrapping up, hard to believe, the month of May and are going to be entering June. And just a little plug, next month will be all about community, relationships, and friendship, which is, I think, a very important topic to talk about, especially in the day and age that we live in now with social media and all these unrealistic expectations around how you live, how you show up, how you do life. And man, today's episode is going to be a challenging one because I feel like for a lot of us, this is where we are and this is where we've lived for a very, very long time. Today's conversation is about burnout. And this is not the trendy version that people joke about online. I mean, the kind where you're still functioning, you're still smiling, you're still showing up, but internally you feel exhausted. You feel disconnected, unmotivated, and honestly, a little numb. I think so many people right now are carrying silent burnout while trying to maintain appearances. We've normalized being overwhelmed, we glorify being busy, and somewhere along the way, many of us stop checking in with ourselves emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So today, I'm going to have an honest heart to heart conversation about burnout, what it can actually look like, what I've personally learned about it, how to recognize it before it completely drains you. And y'all know I love practical, okay? I'm going to give you some practical ways that you can start slowing down without feeling guilty for it. And as always, I want you to leave every single episode feeling challenged, feeling encouraged, and feeling inspired. So let's do this. All right. So I personally used to think, and maybe this is you also, that burnout was this like dramatic thing. Like, oh my gosh, this person had a nervous breakdown. We're really concerned about them. We don't know what happened. They just kind of disappeared. And although, yes, it can look like that, but sometimes burnout looks like being irritable. Sometimes it looks like lack of motivation. You have brain fog, emotional numbness. You struggle to be present. You're sitting at the table around your girlfriends and you're like, yeah, your body is physically there, but your mind is like in a million different directions. You're constantly needing dopamine hits. You're feeling overwhelmed by the small tasks. Hello. Been there. Many, okay? Many high functioning people don't realize they're burned out because they're still productive. Functioning doesn't automatically mean healthy. And so the question I want you to ask yourself is, have you ever been physically present somewhere, but mentally exhausted? The answer is yes. For me personally, I feel like for the longest time, all I knew was survival. And if you don't know a ton about me, just to give you a little bit of backstory so you have a little bit more context, grew up in a military family, traveled all over the world, graduated high school, went to school at Kansas State University for 2 years, and then I transferred to Liberty University in Virginia. So pretty much 18, I was the kid that left. I'm going to see the world. I'm going to be an adult. Transferred to Liberty University as a junior, and I worked 2 jobs all the way through college and still graduated the top of my class, got a degree in law, and then went into the working world. So since I was really 14, I've had a job, I've worked. And so for me, at that time, I knew where every dime, and I still do, knew where every dime was coming from. I knew where it was going because I needed to. And for so long, my nickname was Busy Bee. And I started to wear that as like this badge of honor. Like, yes, I'm busy. Everyone knows me as a busy person. But then you have to really slow down and you get to a point, at least for me, I would be in places with people and so desperately like want to be in the moment, want to be present. But for whatever reason, my brain was in a million different directions thinking about the bill that I needed to pay or the long day I had ahead of me or the clothes that needed to be folded, or the silent conversations I was having with God of like, how long is it going to be like this? How long am I going to have to sit in this moment or the season? And it's subtle. It starts with the little things. And I think the more that you can slow down and really identify what those triggers are, you can actually stop yourself from getting to that place of mentally exhausted. And we've made exhaustion a personality trait because we live in a society that rewards hustle and overworking. Being busy has become associated with being important. Constant access through our phones, through social media, our brains never actually fully rest. And many people feel guilty slowing down because productivity becomes tied to your worth. And I was just having this conversation with a friend a couple of days ago. We were talking about the importance of Sabbath and Shabbat and just taking a moment to rest and to recuperate, and how I went through 6 months of deep discipleship towards the end of last year and really learned a lot about myself of just how I wasn't really creating that rhythm in my schedule where I was honestly resting and having a true Sabbath. And so one week, my victory step was to observe a true Sabbath. And if you've listened to my podcast before, you've probably heard bits and pieces of this story. So I'm going to paraphrase, but the very first time that I had a true Sabbath, I cried for 3 hours, like boohoo crying, sitting on the couch, crying, because I felt so guilty for taking a step back to pause. And I think a lot of us have this misconception of what a Sabbath is. And yes, it is a time to rest, it is a time to reset and recalibrate. But the part that we don't talk about is it's also a time to fill yourself back up, doing something that fills you, whether that's going for a long walk, whether that for me, having ice cream from Twisty Treat. I don't know what my obsession is recently, but I love to go to Twisty Treat and get a kitty size s'mores crunch twirl. But that's my thing. And I love it. And I think for the longest time, I thought it meant you sit and do nothing. And it's you're creating a healthy habit and a rhythm, disconnecting from the things that drain you, your phones, TVs. But it doesn't mean that you don't do something for you. Maybe that's, okay, I'm going to set aside an hour. I'm going to do this laundry that I need to do because that fills me, that makes me feel centered because my house is clean and there's not stuff everywhere. I really want to encourage the person who struggles with that. And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, we do, because we feel like if we take rest, that we'll fall behind. But your productivity and your worth is not tied to what you can do for people. Because the reality is some people don't know who they are outside of what they produce, because you haven't actually slowed down enough to really get to know who you are. And a scripture that I want to share with you and encourage you with is in Matthew 11:28, and it says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest." So most of us, me included, I used to think that burnout really just affects your energy. But here are some other things that burnout impacts. It does impact your relationships. It does impact your patience, your faith, your physical health, your creativity, your emotional regulation. You start surviving instead of living. Sometimes you isolate without realizing it. You become disconnected from joy. You'll get to a season in your life where rest isn't optional anymore. And I hit that season, man, I've hit it a few times, but really last year I hit where I was like, it's not optional. Because if you follow me on social media, I'm a fitness girly. I love to work out. I'm constantly out here on my hot girl walks. I'm always at the gym. I'm always doing something. And it got to a point to where I was, at the time, I've always been a morning person for the most part since college, but I didn't have healthy habits in the sense of going to bed at 9:30 and waking up at 4. I was going to bed like 10:30, 11, and I was still waking up at 4. And then I was having this full day and I was wondering why I was so exhausted all the time. And it kind of got to the point to where I was just like, I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to have conversations with people. I would be in conversations and I would be so irritated. For what reason? I don't know. I would just be irritated. And now I'm learning, obviously, that it was because I was burnt out. I was mentally exhausted. I was physically there, but not mentally there. And I kind of got to a point to where I was just like, something has to change because I cannot keep operating from this place of survival. I cannot keep operating from this place of, if I don't get it done today, it won't get done. And I'm not saying be careful. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a level of urgency with your life and, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just do it tomorrow. But there is a healthy balance that you need to have with that. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, this isn't sustainable. I could do a lot of the things that I'm doing forever 27, but I could do a lot of the things that I was doing in my 20s that I can in my 30s. However, as you get older, things change. Your body chemistry changes. You need more rest. You really need to be aware of the rhythms and the unhealthy habits that you have in your life. And I was like, yeah, something has to change. I am constantly showing up for other people. I'm constantly doing all these things for other people, but when was the last time I actually did something for myself? When was the last time I really showed up for myself? And I took these 6 months and I went through this deep discipleship, something that I had kind of been putting off, but had been feeling the tug in my spirit for a while, and really started to look at me in the mirror. And it's something that I said to my coach last week. We were on a call and we were talking about life and where I'm going next and this transition and all these things. And I told her, I said, it was so hard for me to confront what I was actually feeling because for the longest time, my normalized feeling was not feeling anything, was not actually tapping into your feelings and acknowledging them because I saw and viewed it as being weak. And feelings is something that God gave us. Now, you're not supposed to live from them, but you are allowed to process them and to slow them down. And when I realized that, I was like, something has to change. So I went through this deep 6 month discipleship. And when I tell you, it turned my life upside down. And I realized that I had a lot of unhealthy habits. I had an unhealthy relationship with myself, how I viewed myself, how I talked to myself. And not that I was, talking badly to myself in the sense of, I think you're ugly and all this. The conversations of like, Ashley, you're better than this. You're stronger than this. Why are you tired? Just keep moving. And if you've been an athlete at any point in your life, you learn to play hurt. Your coach is like, okay, but you're not dead. Like, keep going. Okay, get back out there. Okay, we got 6 more minutes in the game. I need you to get back in there. Oh, okay, your race is in 30 minutes. I need you to suck it up, wrap the angle, and keep it moving. And so you naturally start to build these unhealthy dynamics without even realizing that it's not normal. It's not normal to run on empty. It's not normal. I do not know why I'm so freaking emotional right now, but it's not normal to run and operate from those places because you cannot pour out from an empty cup. And I think we can say that, oh yeah, like my cup needs to be full and I just want God to pour into me. But saying it and living it are two different things. And the other thing I want you to understand truly is that rest is not laziness. Rest is stewardship because hello, if you're a Christian, you know that Jesus rested on the seventh day. And if God, a perfect man, the only one that walked the earth, rested, so should we. Because he was the ultimate example of what we should live and strive for. Boundaries are necessary. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. And like I said earlier, you cannot pour endlessly from an empty cup. Rest isn't only sleep, okay? Emotional rest, spiritual rest, social rest. Hello, sometimes you got to turn that phone off. And something that I'm learning, and I'm going to do a whole episode on this because recently I experienced something where, the calmness felt suspicious to me because there was a season in my life where that would not have been my immediate response. But turning off your phone and resting socially is part of it. Mentally resting, giving yourself time to just sit in the calm. Being creative also requires rest. One of my favorite Psalms in the Bible, in Psalms 23:2, it talks about he makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He refreshes or restores, whichever version you're reading, refreshes my soul is my favorite. And so if you're the person listening, you're like, okay, that sounds good, but don't really know where to start. I feel like I'm super far down the loophole and I don't really know how to come back out of it. I got you. Number 1, stop glorifying being busy. Stop it. And I want you to ask yourself, truly, am I being productive or am I avoiding myself? Number 2, pay attention to your body, okay? Because it does show up in your body. For me, it's headaches. Sometimes it's tension. Sometimes it's poor sleep. You're irritable. You have constant fatigue. Like you got 10 hours of sleep, but you're still tired. You're like, why am I so tired? I just slept 10 hours. Check in with yourself. Check in with your body. I want you to rebuild rhythms, not just routines, because you need to create space for stillness. You need to create space for joy, for hobbies, sunlight, movement, genuine connection. And it's something so sweet about connecting with like-minded people. It fills your soul in a way. We had a brunch earlier this week where all of the women's groups, 30 women's groups at my church, we went to brunch and we just got to connect. And when I tell you, like, it filled my soul in a way that I can't explain, like women getting together that love Jesus and talking about real life and the struggles and the different things that we're going through, but still leaning and trusting in God through it all. And something that I want you to understand when it comes to rest and burnout is you do need to set the boundaries before the resentment sets in, because it will. You have to protect your peace before your body forces you to. And I have been there. And I'm sure somebody else listening to this has too. You're just like, oh, I'm going to rest next week. I'm going to rest next week. And I remember it was the first time I tried to do 75 hard, which I love all y'all that do it. It's great. But some of us personality types, we just shouldn't, okay? Because we have unhealthy habits. We're 0 or 100. And so, but I remember it. I had already been, on this crazy workout regimen, trying to change things in my life. I just moved to Florida. I'd been here maybe a year and a half. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do the 75 hard. I'm 41 days in. Mind you, the entire time there are like alarms, lights, all the things going off. Like, okay, girl, relax. You need to slow down. Nope. I kept going. I'm exhausted. Day 41. I have never, okay, in my life, in all of my living, 27 years, never in my life had the flu. Okay. But when I tell you I got knocked on my behind, okay, on my behind for like 2 weeks. I mean, aches, I had a fever. I was so sick. And I am the person, if you know me well, you know I'm not asking for nothing, okay? I'm just not going to do it. I tell my friends all the time, if you want to do something, just do it because I'm not going to ask you, even if you know it's blatantly something that I need. It's just not in my nature. I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at asking for help, and I'm getting better at like letting people in when things are going on. But during that time, I told my friend, I'm like, girl, like, I need you. She came over and she, made me soup and like sat on the floor with me for a few hours and chatted with me, brought me crackers, like took care of me. And I needed it because I was struggling. So when I tell you, if you do not protect your peace before your body does, that is something that can happen to you. Please do not get to the point of that, because you either listen, have wisdom and discernment to sit down, or God will sit you down. Okay? I'm just leave that there. The other thing that I had to learn is to spend time with God without an agenda, not performing, not striving, just being. Because a lot of us, yes, we should spend time with God. It should be a part of your thing. Like Pastor Aaron always says, is make an appointment with God and keep it. So we need to have that time with God. It's very important. It centers us. It roots us. It helps me to show up like the love of Jesus, because people out here be wilding and acting crazy. And I like to remind people, I'm from the south side of the kingdom, okay? So God is still very much working on me. But I think a lot of the times we're like, okay, I need to sit in the floor for 6 hours and I need to do all these things and I need to, no, not performing means yesterday. I'll give you an example. I had a long week and there's a lot on my mind. There's a lot I'm processing. There's a lot that I'm working through between therapy with my coach and just the stage of life that I'm in. And I just sat and just listened to worship music for an hour, and I just walked and I just worshiped. And I didn't come with an agenda. I was like, God, I just need you to meet me here. I think we have gotten so far away from just wanting to be with God and not wanting to just be with him because we want him to give us something or because we're believing God for something. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to want God to give you something and to believe if God has given you a promise that he won't bring it to pass. But sometimes, y'all, I think we forget like the power of just sitting in his presence and experiencing him. Because more than anything, I think God just desires to be with us. So, my encouragement to you as we wrap this up, I do not know, y'all, why I'm so emotional today. I could think of a few things, but not going to share that here. Ladies, you probably already know what that is. But I want to encourage you that burnout is not a badge of honor. And I think for so many of us, strength meant pushing through everything, carrying everything, never slowing down, never needing help. But real strength is knowing when something needs to change before you completely lose yourself in the process. Because you deserve a life that you can actually be present in and not just survive through. So, if this episode spoke to you today, I really encourage you to take an honest inventory of your life this week. What's draining you? What needs to shift? What have you been ignoring? And maybe most importantly, when was the last time that you truly rested without guilt? So, my call to action today is, if this episode encouraged you, if it challenged you, if it made you feel seen, make sure to share it with a friend, post it to your story, and tag me so we can continue the conversation. And as always, I want you to stay rooted and radiant. And next week, we're starting the new series for June, which is all about community, relationships, and sisterhood. So I hope to see you there. Love y'all.